Hi, this is Chuck Gardner, and this is another one of my photo tutorials. And in this one, I want to talk about digital exposure. When I started out in photography, this was my first camera. It's a Nikonis 2 underwater camera. It's sealed with O-rings. You have to take it apart to load the film, and you didn't have a viewfinder. You put this viewfinder here up against your mask. It doesn't have a rangefinder. What you have to do is set your distance with this white dial, and you set your aperture with your black dial. Above water, you just use the chart on the box, sunny 16. This would be an F4 day because it's so overcast. And I took the camera and I sent it to a company called Ikelite in Florida. And Ikelite, this camera cost about $350 back then. And the flash attachment, which used flash bulbs, single flash bulbs from Nikon, cost like $150, half the cost of the camera. This was much cheaper. This is a tethered flash gun. And so what you did is you held the camera, the shutter release was here, and you held this up like this, tethered on your mask, and you lined up this thing so you didn't see the sides. That was the correct distance. And then you just take the picture, and the flash cube went off. Now, on the flash gun here, I have put the guide number chart for the flash cubes. So at 10 feet, you would use F56. That is the way the guide number works if you divide the guide number by the distance. So if the guide number is 56 and you're at 10 feet, then 56 divided by 10 is 5.6. That's how you determine your aperture with flash. And the thing with flash that you come to realize is that the way the inverse square rule works is every time the distance doubles, the area that the flash covers goes up by a factor of the square of that, right? So as it turns out, if you were to take a string and tie it to your light and put knots at 4, 5.6, 8 feet, 11 feet, 11 feet, 22, 16 feet, 22 feet, the f-stop distances, that will give you a one-stop difference in intensity of light. That's how we set lights in the 70s when we were using just one power flash. That is old school. Photographers, when they use flash bulbs, that's how they learned. I learned the old school way. My next camera I bought was this is actually the third camera. I bought a Nikon FTN camera. It was the same Nikon F, but it had a metering module on it. This thing here is for connecting the flash. That's removable. This is an extra shutter button. This is an 85 millimeter lens. I also have a 35 millimeter lens. This was my photojournalism kit. I had one hanging on this hip, the other hanging on this hip. Wide angle telephoto, black and white color. In my freshman year of college, I got selected on this farm term program, off-campus program, because I had been doing such a good job as a photojournalism getting published that I convinced the sponsors to let me do documentation of this new program as my project. I got a whole semester's credit for taking pictures, which, really didn't matter because I was planning to drop out anyway and become a photographer, but, I was on a full academic scholarship, so I had to take the classes and get good grades. So I learned the hard way, just everything manual. I didn't have anything to go by initially. Then I bought this gizmo. This is one of the first 1-degree spot meters. You can come in here, and the metering spot from where I am standing here, about 10 feet away from the camera, is exactly this big, the diameter of the lens. If I point it over to the house there, it's an area that's about 2 feet. So this device here enabled me to learn Ansel Adams' zone system without having to go through all the rigmarole with the grayscale. The way the zone system worked with Adams is you always used an 18% gray card as your metering reference. You took the gray card, put it in the same light as your subject, and read it with a Weston meter, and then based on that zone 5 reading, you would figure out what your true film speed and everything was. I just simply pointed at the shadow, pointed at the highlight, told me exactly what my exposure should be in my development. It was really simple. And I have like a really good memory, photographic memory. I can remember things from when I was 3 years old. So, you know, I don't have to write things down. I can remember things. I can remember what the range is. Now, the grace card in digital photography is vital for color balance, not for exposure. And when I first started using digital cameras, I was using manual flash. I had 2 flashes. I'm going to do a tutorial on flash. But when I bought my first digital camera, I also bought 2 new digitally safe Vivitar flashes. The old Vivitars, they had a trigger voltage through the camera of over 400 volts. And you connected the camera via the PC. This round thing here is called a PC socket. And that's how you connected your external flash. Well, those old Vivitars, the trigger voltage was over 400 volts. So when digital cameras came out, that fried the electronics, so they had to come out with a new line of flash. So anyway, I bought 2 new flashes, and I also bought a camera rotating bracket that I'll show you when I do a tutorial on flash. But I realized, because I had this instant playback, that all I needed for exposure was to have a white towel for the highlights and a black towel for the shadows. This is my favorite Mofo black golf towel. But this is all you need for exposure. What you do is you use the highlight clipping warning and adjust your exposure in the highlights until the body of the white towel is just barely at the point of clipping in your JPEG playback on your camera. And then that will give you plenty of headroom on your raw files. You will never ever overexpose a highlight. Now, and you want the sun or whatever light is hitting this. If you're doing a portrait, I always put the sun in the back, and I will expose so the rim light is below, where the rim light hits this is a third of a shot below clipping. Then after you look at get the highlights correct, it's called exposure to the right of the histogram, you look and see where the spike from the black towel is on the histogram. If it's not running off the edge, then it means that you've got shadow detail. Well, you just have to use your eyeballs to figure out you have detail. So this became my exposure meter. I got my 15 minutes of fame on photo forums. I was posting on the Digital Photo Review website in the lighting forum, and I suggested this white towel method, and it became known as the Chuck Gardner white towel method. And the funny thing is I will Google that occasionally and see if it's still mentioned. I came across some college photography teacher teaching Photography 101, and she was using my white towel method. And Chuck Westfall, who was the Kodak guru, technical guru before Rudy Winston, he wrote a column and he mentioned my white towel method. So that was my 15 minutes of fame. But it is really simple, and it's just basic common sense, and that's how I operate. So that's the lesson on exposure. And the critical takeaway to remember is that digital sensors cannot handle the contrast of sunlight, which is why learning how to use flash is still such a valuable skill. And that's what I'm going to cover in the next lesson. So thanks for watching. I hope you find this useful. If you do, leave some feedback, comments. Tell me what areas of photography you're having trouble with, and I will try to help you. Thanks for watching.